Hello and welcome. My name is Matt Auryn. I am the author of Psychic Witch, a metaphysical guide to meditation, magic, and manifestation. I am here today on behalf of Patheos Pagan and Modern Witch to present an interview that I did with actress Rachel True. Rachel True is an actress best known for her role in the movie The Craft. She is a lifelong occultist and has been reading tarot cards long before being cast in the 1990s witchy cult classic. True shares her tarot knowledge in her new deck, the True Heart Intuitive Tarot, which is a box set including a tarot deck and a guidebook. Each card in the deck is uniquely made following a beautiful multicultural aesthetic and was designed and illustrated by artist Stephanie Singleton. The guidebook is filled with personal stories from True's life and experiences as an actress to illuminate the card's interpretation. This deck is great for longtime tarot readers and newbies alike. The guidebook includes information on different tarot spreads, how to read them, how to interpret them, how to center yourself before a tarot reading, and how to use your intuition to assign meaning to each card. In this interview, we discuss her new deck, as well as tarot in general, intuition, psychic ability, magic, her role on the craft, and a lot of other really interesting topics. So I hope that you enjoy this interview as much as I enjoyed chatting with Rachel. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the process of this creation. So specifically, did you have, like, when it came to the artistic design of the cards itself, how much influence did you have on that? Like, did you already have the idea and then give that to the artist, or was it like a collaboration back and forth?
I started off by writing another second book, basically, like, you know, again, how a book process goes. So I'm writing my own book, but then I'm also writing up, again, slightly different card interpretations for her and what I want. I would write up what I thought the card represented. I would pull artwork as well. So I was kind of clear. Most of it I got that I wanted. I think there's some stunning cards in there. Some cards I didn't have as much say over because the process is winding down. And when you work for a major publisher, they're paying the bills. And that's any business, any job. So there's a few things, I suppose, that I would have loved to have gone back and tweak. But the truth is, it was on a timetable. They were printing it up during COVID. And I think that because I was writing up notes and giving pictures, and then the artist would give her interpretation. She's not going to copy those pictures. We don't want to copy, right? Well, she's then going to synthesize that and draw something, and we'd get one or two passes before we'd kind of get to the final stage. I would say it was weird for me because I would have loved to just gone up to Toronto and brainstorm. You know, I think if I do another deck, which I probably will, maybe more advanced one, like that's probably what I would do next time. But I think I see how this process actually worked really well for this deck. So it also left me a lot of time to just focus on my book too, you know, as opposed to like being up in her grill all the time. And she's super talented, lovely mixed girl. I think Stephanie Singleton is a Canadian artist who, I can't tell what she is actually. I think she's Black and Asian and something. I mean, she's a very eclectic mixed chick. And that's part of why I wanted, I did want to work with a woman, you know, I was really clear on that, just that was one thing I felt would be important for me and tarot. It was to have a woman on board. So I'm really glad we got to work together.
I love that. This deck it's weird because I feel like, you know, I loved it right away, but I feel like I'm falling in love with it more I work with it, which is...
You know what, though? That's a good sign, though, don't you think? I mean, it's not a bad sign, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Because
there's so many decks that I want to like, that I want to, you know, be able to use and connect with, but I have to end up putting them away because, like you were saying about like that depressing deck, you aren't getting what you need out of it as a tool.
Yeah. And listen, everyone's going to resonate. Some people are going to love some cards. Some people are not going to love them. Some people are going to resonate with this deck. Some people aren't. I really like it. I feel like, again, I worked out that I feel like it is, I think, in alignment with Rider-Waite, you know? So I feel really good about that. But
it's not a clone either.
No, I didn't want to. There's too many clones. Have you ever seen the Miss Cleo deck? Do you remember Miss Cleo?
Yes.
Which is like kind of why I'm afraid. People are thinking I'm turning into Miss Cleo, and I'm like, no.
So I made a Miss Cleo joke in a workshop, and like one person knew who she was.
Oh no, I know she's really. It's old. It's an old school thing.
Yeah,
but like, here's the thing: Miss Cleo's like a '90s TV reader. But she had a Rider-Waite deck that wasn't even that bad. It was just Egyptians in the place of. It was the exact same image, but stick an Egyptian outfit on them. And I didn't want to do that either. I did leave some cards purposely. Some cards just morphed into something that was closer to the original, and I was fine with that because they were telling me what they wanted to be too, you know, and that worked for them. And I was like, I think there's enough different ones that it's not, again, like a copy. Like I personally love my Eight of Swords card too, because it's a person. We all know the Eight of Swords is when on the Rider-Waite, the person is tied to the sword and they've got a bandage here but the eye bandage is barely on. I mean, they could see past it if they wanted, and the bandages could probably fall off if they should. They could walk away from that sword. So generally, it can sometimes be I'm just emotionally stuck in something, or I'm choosing to stay, which a lot of us do. We get used to situations that are wacky, and then we're scared in fear and anxiety about what might happen if we leave that. So Eight of Swords is, I think, a popular card for these times, especially with people in relationships. You know, after 9 months of pandemic, you're either deciding you're going to stay in it or get out. So a lot of people are in an Eight of Swords position, and I chose to use, like, it's a woman with this hair, and it's a bit of an octopus shape, which I love, which Stephanie came up with. And her hair is tied to the sword. So I think I came up with that because all my hair broke off last year. And I realized how much ego, I had ego wrapped up in my hair. It's not insane for a woman to have ego. Now, it'll grow back. You know, I calm myself down by going, it'll grow back, Rachel, it's just hair. But at the same time, I thought, like most of us, it feels like it's going to hurt so much to have some change, or my hair was down to here and it broke off. It didn't really hurt me. It was ego. My ego was hurting because I thought I looked prettier with more hair, right? Like when we really boil it down to what it is. So I decided to use that image in the card because the little whips of hair are tied to the swords. So the person can get out of that, and they might have to cut away just a teeny bit of the hair. But some people will stay in stuff for ego-wise. Would rather stay in that stuck situation with the hair, keep the hair, than lose the bit that needs to go. You know, I mean, there's different analogies in there, but I think they're ones that will resonate with people. I'm hoping, you know, I feel like it's clear. So my goal was to have cards that were clear for people.
Absolutely. And because I got an early copy of it, obviously. Yay! I did a review of it, and I interviewed the deck. I do that with all the new decks to be like, tell me about
You interviewed?
I did. And that was one of the cards that came up.
Oh, so, was it really?
Yeah,
but
so I interpreted
people who are listening, like, that's a little tiny, may or may not be a little psychic thing, right? But, like, yet I said Eight of Swords, and yet that's the card who came up from, because that's in the end, because I'm not, like Matt, a psychic witch, my gifts tend to come up like that, where I'll say something and not know that I'm saying something that is related to. Anyway,
you've done that like 7 times in this conversation, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, you've brought up the thing I was going to ask you about next. So I'm like, okay, well, don't need to segue. Like, you're on it. You're tuned in.
I think that most of us who are, you know, in this kind of world kind of do that, you know, are sort of tuned into all this energy. And again, I think it's clear with someone like me, really, I just need to learn to bridle myself sometimes, you know, because when I feel the energy, it's hard to keep it in, and then I want to express it. So that's another thing. Even at my grown age, I'm like, oh, let me work on that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
I think we're all works in progress. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I think. And so, every time I stumble on something, you know, if it's love or whatever, I'm like, you know, I don't want to repeat that pattern. I'm willing to look at my shadow. I was talking with a friend of mine who did a reading with my deck today. She had the sun card in her root consciousness. And I really love the sun card in this deck. It's based off an Egyptian. The sun with the hands is an old Egyptian thing I found. And again, I love the high and low, because like the high vibe of that card is all the happiness we know. And I would say it's not even the low vibe, but the sideways vibe is just looking into our shadow stuff. The sun reveals stuff, you know, sheds light on some of our own behavior. That's probably particularly Jungian. You might not think like that, but your school of thought. But mine is, it's not just that it's all great and happy, which it is, but it's also, you know, if it were reversed or whatever, it would probably mean we need to look at some things, shed some light. We've been a little blind. We've had our blinders on. So I love that they put that together today when they were doing their reading with the card. And they sort of understood that that's what it meant, because the pyramids have rays coming out of them. And she said that's what made her realize, shine some light on your stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the aspects of your own spirituality that really shines through this deck, is just the high vibe and the low vibe. This sort of idea that, you know, nothing is always positive, you know, nothing's always negative, you know.
Also, nothing's black and white too.
Right.
There's a lot of, I mean, although I've met a lot of people who are borderline or bipolar, who it is very black and white, their world, right? But at least in my world, I can see there's a lot of in-between grays, right? So just trying to navigate those grays the best I can.
And it's like you were saying about the lovers, like there's been many readings where I pull up the lovers and they're like, oh, it's a good sign. And I'm like, not necessarily. Like, there's a choice, you know, like you were saying earlier. So,
I agree with that. Like, here's my thing, you know, again, not to like harsh on the tubers too much, because there's some definitions that they have morphed that I agree with. Like, I do agree that the Page or the Princess of Swords can mean someone spying on your social media. Oh, I think that's what, girl, I mean, boy, I mean, that's what they say. I'd never heard it. I never read it that way, right? Yeah. I just don't. It's a message. It's a message, right? So anyway, a small one. Anyway, or mind. All the things we know about the Page Swords. But I don't disagree. I don't disagree with them on that. But then I don't agree that the Three of Cups is an interloper every time. It's not. Yeah. You're making people paranoid by saying there's third party. There's a third. Every time there's a 3 card does not always mean there's a third party. It is not fun to see them torture you guys. That's how they keep you hooked to come back for the next reading. Right.
And, and that's definitely like one of the red flags of a scam artist. Like, you know, of having that codependency that you were talking about, which is why I think it's so important as teachers of, you know, whether it's creating a book and a deck, or just doing classes or whatever, but like empowering people to do it themselves.
I'm so glad you agree with me, because again, I'm not trying to step on the toes of he's a reader as well as an author, but I'm not trying to step on the toes of readers. There's a great, you know, I've gone to them, blah, 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 it's a great thing, but it's sort of like the twin flames thing, right? It can become me too. I'm like, y'all, it's literally a trap for codependence. I'm not saying there isn't super special connections, but y'all out there, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying though is, I think there's many, many, many soulmates. That's my personal opinion. Some are deeper connections than others. So if you want to view on it that this one is deeper than the other one, great. But when I was doing researching twin flames for the book, and I kept going around it because I wrote about a lover we still have a strong connection, and he'll do anything for me to this day, but I don't think he's my twin flame. I think that twin flame is a concept that they've taken from Roman and Greek, you know, philosophers, and they've sort of bastardized it a little bit. Every new age has its new age thing. And I'm a little cautious with twin flames with people, because I worry that they get you to spend a lot of money on their twin flame classes and their twin flame reuniting spells and ceremonies and all that. So I'm not trying to step on the toes of people who really do good readings, but I am trying to encourage people that if you need to call 2 to 3 readers a week, there's a problem, actually, I think, unless you're going through something major. But if you need that, then I think one reader and therapy. Go to a reader and also layer in therapy in tandem with your reading, or again, learn to read your own cards with this in tandem with therapy, or in tandem with exercise, or in tandem with things that help get the tension out of your body, because actors understand that feelings get stored in the body. We get that. So the average layperson doesn't know that, and that's why I say even something like exercise can actually be a way to get in touch with spirit, right? Because you're feeling your body again for the first time, and the mind-body connection is super important for intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with my own witchcraft students, I'm very big on, if you can afford it, if you have the resources, go through therapy.
Yeah, because, I'm glad you're big on that too. It can only help, right?
Yeah, and there's such a stigma around it, but dealing with your stuff, confronting it, talking about it, figuring it out is going to be one of the most powerful things you can do spiritually. And when people can't afford it, or even when they can, I do recommend the tarot, because like you were saying, it's a shrink in a box. It's a way to reflect on things and look at things from different angles, and especially which is what I was talking about with the spectrum in this deck of light and dark, looking at things that you don't want to look at, those shadow things, those things that you don't want to necessarily confront, which ties into what you were saying about twin flames too, which I wholeheartedly agree, where it becomes sort of like a codependency, wishful thinking, and then it starts getting kind of
it leaves people stuck in a limerent state. And I said this in my book, I think, I don't like unrequited love or limerent states. There's not enough oxygen. It's too hard to breathe there.
Right. Yeah, totally. So to transition a little bit.
Wait, before you transition, when you interviewed my deck, what did it say?
When I what?
When you interviewed my deck, what did it say?
Okay. I can pull up the actual thing.
No, I have it, I think.
So for the most part, what it was saying, and I found this to be true after playing with it, is that it's very non-judgmental. And I found that to be true with the deck, is, it's very King of Swords. So it's very this is how it is, but it's not got quite the harshness sometimes the Queen has, because I always associate the Queen of Swords with that Cersei kind of Game of Thrones character. The other one was the Eight of Swords. So there's this idea that it's very much about, introspecting and looking at things and looking at how it's holding you back or binding you, and how you can move out of that just by looking inwards and
which I think is why we use some of those shadow people in the deck. There are people with skin tones and all of that, but then there are also just dark figures that we use for some of the cards. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the deck, it's very balanced too. It's very, so that's what I like, because decks also tend to either be way too intuitive or way too analytical, where it's hard to find a balance sometimes that the traditional Rider-Waite has, or even Crowley's Thoth deck can sometimes get a little too analytical,
I pull that deck out when I'm I need it harsh. I need it blunt, harsh, and straightforward. I don't actually use it that often though, because it's a heavy deck,
Yeah. Well, he's a heavy person.
Well, what's funny is I was at a lunch and someone had that. We were, a couple of us had tarot cards with us, and they pulled out their Thoth. And it was a bigger one, but it was a Thoth. And I said, oh, I have that. And then stupid Rachel, stupid. I said, oh, I said, I have that. And she said, no, you don't. And I said, no, I do. I have the smaller one. And she's like, no, you don't. They don't have a small. And I was already that threw me off, right? Because but then I said, and then here's where I was dumb. I said, it's kind of heavy, right? It's kind of like a heavy deck. It's you can be a little negative, and that they got so offended. So here's what I want to say, that again, I think it's a personal tool, right? But at the same time, I certainly didn't mean to push her buttons.
Right.
Or upset her about her deck. Because the way I operate as a Scorpio, Capricorn, 2 practical rising, I'm like, I like it. I don't, like if someone said your deck is a negative, I'd say, oh, I guess that's weird that it reads that way for you. It doesn't for me. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Well, it's a little different when it's your deck. But like, I don't know. If you said to me, I hate the mother piece, I would be like, oh yeah, fair enough. I liked it though. You know what I mean? I don't take it personally. It's like sort of layer on the 4 agreements, people, and life's a little easier. Don't take things personally. Be impeccable with your, anyway.
So what is your favorite card in this deck? Do you have?
Oh gosh, you know what? I don't. I'm going to say this about favorite cards. I mean, there is always like a card we love and XYZ, but I think my favorite cards tend to change. To be totally honest, depending on what's up with me, right? So for some reason, I'm really like loving the sun. Even more so. It's disconcerting about a deck with you in it. Like you lay out a spread and you're the Empress, and you're like, oh shoot, that's me. That's weird. But I really like the sun card, I think, just because it's so positive, and I have been at home like everybody else, for the most part for 8 to 9 months, and dot. So the thought of just running naked in a field with the sun and flowers and being free and hands. Do you see those hands on that card? Hands touching me? Yeah, that sounds fun.
Well, and just positivity in general, like our world needs it so badly right now.
Yeah, and I think especially as like as a black woman, mixed and black to Jewish mixed woman in America, it's really scary, even for grown woman me, because I explained to a European friend of mine the other day, because he said, well, yes, it's getting bad out there, and someone wants to raise someone. It's in someone's best interest that all this stuff is being stirred up, right? No, that's not it. No, he has a point, because what he means is the 5 fat white men in charge, one of them, it's in their best interest to have us at each other's throats. That's true. Whether it's Russia or whoever, somebody wants us all angry at each other. That said, some of this stuff has always been around and needs to come up, right? Like it all needs to come up in a judgment card way so we can release it all. But my point is, I said to my European friend, he said, well, it's much better you live in a city. And I said, I want you not to say that to me anymore. I hear you, but the truth is I'm still black wherever I go. So I'm in this city and there's like a shooter up on top of the roof of that building. I'm a target because of my skin in this city or in the country. It doesn't matter. So for you, a white person, it's better in the city because you see less of the hillbillies. Me, I'm still on guard, to be honest, even in this city. Because I'm black.
Right.
So that's just, that's the way it goes. And my generation, Gen X, like I remember the Anita Hill trial and all of that. And I remember walking around New York City going, nobody will believe me as a black woman. I will be ridiculed and laughed at, because she was treated a certain way. And you could see the men grinning and laughing and back then. So I think it's a trying time. And that's probably why I gravitate towards a super happy card right now, like the sun, right? Because in the end, I've always thought this, I could spin around in anxiety about what if, but that's living in the future, right? Like that really is. Anxiety is projecting yourself and what could go wrong in the future. Depression is generally, I'm thinking about what already went wrong in the past. So I like to Ram Dass it, be here now.
Right.
In this moment, I am talking to you, right? So the rest of the day goes away and it's just, we are talking about subjects that interest us.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's, wow, that's powerful. Thank you. So the other thing I wanted to kind of transition just for a moment is, did you ever think that you would be a toy? Like, how weird is that?
Wait, she was over here. I don't know where she went.
I got her.
She was like right over here. But, oh, there she is. I love that you have one. It is. I can't even lie. I wish I could play it cool. Be like, no, I don't know. It's fine. It's totally fine. No, it's super effing cool because there's not that many brown Funkos either. There's some, but there's not that many. So the fact, but also hold her up again. Look, They got her baby barrette right. She has her little baby barrette and they got the color of her hair right. also they didn't make her too high yellow. They made, you know, she's like my orangey brown. I love her. Look at her. She's holding her little cross. So I thought they did a really good job with that. And again, and that's like, yes, I'm tickled on an ego level. That's something I did, but it's also exciting for all the kids out there who collect Funko Pops who are brown, you know, and now there's this girl that they can add to their collection. Makes me really happy, you know.
That's great.
Yeah. So in the end, like I said, writing, Funko Pop, all these different things have sort of made me realize, like, it's just fun to explore your passions.
Yeah.
That's what I know.
What other projects are you working on that you can talk about? I know some things you probably can't.
No,
what's exciting on the horizon for Rachel True? There's
a few I can, and there's a few that got waylaid by the pandemic, just like everybody else. But I have 2 movies in the can that I shot. The last one I did is called Agnes. Some really fun people are the producers of it. Molly Quinn, who's beautiful, lovely actress, smart girl, woman, actress, producer, and her fiance Elon Gale, who's another big producer too. Sort of an intellectual horror movie. That's how I'm describing it. So I love that I got to play a nun, because the nun is just
another. I love the pictures of you on your social media in the nun outfit. I was like, that is amazing.
So fun, because a nun is, you know, is into her stuff as we are, right? Like, she's married to God. Mm-hmm. I mean, what I noticed in doing research on nuns was they're as kooky as anyone else with their fervency and their love and their lust for God. God came to me. And I mean, they're pretty lusty in their own nunny way. Not to mention all the things that happen in nunneries anyway that we're not even going to go into, right? But anyway, it was really great to I love expanding myself and playing a different kind of character like that. And there was something about putting on that habit where you do feel different. So that was kind of fun to do that. And then, I've got a couple other things, but I'm also excited to be talking with the producer about maybe taking some of the essays, honestly, and turning them into, you know, like something, TV film, you know. So that's kind of fun, you know what I mean? But I like the idea of even acting and writing more, because writing, as an actor, you have no power. You're like, where would you like me to stand? And what do I say? As a writer, you're like, here's what you say. Here's the world you live in. I just created it with my mind. So that's really fun and exciting for me, because I'm sort of at that active woman's age where they're like, we don't know what to do with you. Are you ready to be a great grandma? And I'm like, no. So I think during the time when they're not sure what to do with a grown woman in Hollywood, I'll just explore many other things, you know. But that's why it's great whenever the right role comes along, like the Nun movie, or I did an action movie before that, just because I was like, you know, I don't know, haven't done an action movie in a minute. Why not run around with a gun? So great. I just like to keep it interesting and exciting and fun for me, myself. Otherwise, I get a little dulled out and bored in life.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Ooh, so it's very much the same projects I can't talk about. Well, I'm not talking about.
Yeah, exactly. We're all in the same boat.
I'm big about, like, I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I'm big about manifestation and just kind of keeping that energy to myself until it's ready to go out into the world. Because I kind of agree with myself. There's certain things I'm like, oh, now I'll just wait until you'll see it, right? Right. So there is a burning question that I have, and it is craft related. So forever on the internet, there has been rumors that weird things happened on the set of Craft.
Have you ever met Feruza? Did you ask her this question? Have you ever met her?
No, I haven't met her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? They did, actually. I know it sounds like made up stuff, but it actually did happen. Like, there was a white owl that kept following us that Nev noticed first, I think, from set to set. Or like when I did the, we were on the beach scene, and, you know, with the calling all the corners, and I was water. I mean, that water came up and washed the set away. And it was the middle, we were shooting at night. It wasn't high or low tide. We knew, they set the scene, they set our setup in that location because the ocean should not have come up to that point. Otherwise, they wouldn't have their expensive cameras there. You know, they had mapped it all out that it was low tide. And then I was like, oh, hell, Guardians of whatever. I wish I knew the lines. I don't. You guys, people watching could repeat the lines much more than me. Wait, Guardians of the Watchtower. And it literally came up and washed it all the way. And I was like, like, cause I like that I'm a water sign. And then I was playing the water sign too. Like, if you notice, I'm the one with the fish in the bag. So I'm water in the craft.
Are you a Cancer?
Okay. No, I don't think I cried enough to be a Cancer.
Are you a Pisces?
That's some Cancer shade. I know I'm a Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio. But Rochelle might have been a Cancer because she was like, man, they're being mean to me. So she might have been a Cancer. I love to make fun of my Cancer friends because Scorpios and Cancers are both babies. We really are. But and actually Cancers are crabs with that hard shell, right? But they're actually really babies inside and they cry so easy. Right. So
well, I'm a Pisces, so I mean we're not much.
No, your guys aren't any different. I think you're a little nicer than a Cancer.
Yeah.
Pisces. They're a little like Cancer can be.
We don't have pictures. Like
Cancer, you guys can get a little lost in your own emotions. I don't know about you, but like some Cancers can. And some Scorpios can just be too, get upset and start stinging everyone, including yourself. But you know what I realized? It's not my Scorpio that's my problem. It's the Capricorn. I swear it's the Capricorn because it's so practical and blunt and, which I am. And then I forget that like that upsets people. So I try to temper it. But Capricorn is a tricky sign, I think, but a good one, I mean, in fact, Saturn just went back into Capricorn. And, luckily it's exalted there because that's its home base. I'm learning about astrology. I don't know that much, but I'm learning. And because I was nervous because when Saturn enters in and shifts, it's a big change, right? And Aries today with the moon and the aggression in the air.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to schedule today, just because it was a full moon.
That's what I figured. It was beautiful last night and tonight. It was really pretty. And I do feel, as I always say to people who don't believe in the stuff we're talking about, like, well, the moon controls the tides. So that's a tangible thing that you can see a planet controlling. So again, we don't actually know. My only problem with astrology is I think time is fluid, and we don't really know what day it is and what time it is really. We're always losing seconds and moments and adjusting our calendars. That it's sometimes a little challenging for me to try to wrap my head around astrology, but the more I learn about it, the more it makes sense in terms of broad strokes,
Yeah, like I always teach my students, like in their personal journals, to always record what the moon phase is and what sun sign is in, what sign the sun is in, because you start seeing a pattern.
That's
and you
right.
Start realizing hey, there's something to it.
Exactly. And while I may not be a Wiccan or whatever other people are, I think when you start to notice those patterns, you go, oh, well, isn't it interesting that every waning moon I'm sad? Right. Or when the day it starts waxing, I'm suddenly feel. So those are just things I like to clock because it just gives us insight into ourselves and also the world around us. Because again, I'm hoping with this book, I work in Hollywood. It's a very self-focused business and you have to have a fair amount of ego just to be able to get up on stage, right? Like that's the truth. You need the ego. But at the same time, I've always thought it's important to not buy into the smoke and mirrors, so you can stay kind of grounded and yet attain all the stuff you hopefully desire, hopefully attain all the stuff you desire. But keeping one foot, like the star card, keeping 1 foot on ground and one in the emotions in the water, being able to release some stuff into the collective consciousness so that everyone benefits from it and then you have a less of a load. All of those things I think have kept me marginally sane.
So did you have a specific audience in mind when you created this deck? Because I know when I wrote my book, I kind of visualized who my reader was, who I was speaking to. Did you have anything like that or?
Well, I kind of did it two different ways. I mean, yes, definitely when I was writing the how-to and the tarot portion, it was for, I think, a younger girl, boy, he, she, whoever, they, them, who's new to it, interested in it, but isn't really sure maybe has played around a little bit, but knows there's something about it that interests them or scares them, but they want to learn a little more. So I guess it's not necessarily targeted it's not young people. It's literally anyone who is newer to these studies. But I do think that my interpretations stand up. And it's not just for beginners, but since you asked, like, that is sort of who I kept thinking about myself as a young person, saying, what kind of book would I wanted to read? So I guess I thought, talk about an actor. I thought of myself when I was younger.
Totally. No. And I think the beauty of this is, like, even if there wasn't this amazing deck to go with it, like, the book would stand on its own. Like, it is a solid tarot book.
I think it does stand on its own, to be honest. Like I said, you could separate it from the deck, and you can still get a lot of use. It's a 200+ page book. And what Matt and I are talking about is that most things that come with a deck is a little tiny paper insert where it may have half a sentence or a keyword only, and it's not enough. I don't think it's enough. And, for sure there's good websites out there now, but what if your websites are down? What if you can't this? What if you're on the beach? Like, it's just kind of, I like a tangible book, which is, again, why I wanted to write a tangible book people could hold to kind of ground them in this. But I guess that's who it was for. Like I said, I kind of see it as eclectic, to be honest, because, Teresa gave me some lovely compliments on it, and she's a very accomplished woman. She already knows what these interpretations mean. Obvious, as do many people I'm talking to, but I appreciate very much that you guys are able to say, yeah, you know what, this is good. I see what you're doing here and why you think this is a good idea. Like, I appreciate that.
Well, and I think it's good for any spiritual modality to keep that beginner's mind and, like, go back to the basics and see how someone else is approaching it.
That's right. What people don't understand, and maybe you're different than me, but I'll still look up different interpretations of a card. I know that, maybe not now because I did it a million times, but if I'm like, I know it's this and this, but I just want to hear someone else's take on this card because they may say one keyword or something I'm just not putting together, But I'm sure, listen, I'm sure you can agree like me that if people are going to charge people for readings, you should be able to do without the book.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You can't, I couldn't do a movie if I had the script in front of me. So It's the same concept as that, people. You have to, and yes, it's intimidating. It's 78 cards, but I think, and I'm not the first person to do this, but the way I've broken it down, if you just learn the 10 numbers and the 4 suits, it's 14 things to memorize rather than 78, and you've suddenly leapfrogged ahead in your knowledge or your ability to put the information on the cards together.
Yeah, 100% there with you. So yeah, I mean, I got a lot out of it too. And like you were saying, people can just look stuff up on the internet, but they can't really look up that I've ever seen a personal application of it. Like your memoirs have, really looking at your life or anyone's life and seeing how this card is illustrated through that, I think is so powerful, and I think it's such a great contribution.
I really that means a lot, and I really appreciate it. Again, this is a labor of love. I don't know if people are going to just laugh in my face about it, right? When you release a book, you don't know. Right. You just don't know. So the fact that I've gotten some pretty good feedback, and again, there's going to be people who don't like it, and that's fine too. It's all good. There's room for lots of opinions, lots of decks, lots of opinions, lots of things. So what is for someone might not be for another one. But again, that people that I respect within the magic community, have what I like about people in the magic community. What they get is they can meet me energetically or look at the book or whatever, and they know I'm not making this up. They know I'm not doing it just because I was in a witch movie, Right. And that makes me feel good too, because I think I did an event in a different event before you in Salem and met a couple Cabots, and they were very nice to me, and all of that means something, because in the end, we just want the community, whatever facet you're involved in it, right, to come together so that everybody as a totality feels stronger as a people. We are only as strong as our weakest fellow man, as the saying goes. So I like that. I think the people in the know and in this world are including me because they get it. They're like, listen, she did her homework and she's obviously been in it. And it's everything everyone, there's room for many, many decks. Like I didn't know there was so much drama in the reader world. And I had to tell someone to leave me out of it because like I don't care. Like the Instagram, YouTube, whatever, there's a lot of drama, and you know, none of that's for me. Right. I'm just trying to make people feel better, because if you feel better when I walk next to you on a supermarket line, I might actually get a little like, oh, I feel better and I don't know why. Right. You feel worse, then I might walk away with a neck ache going, why? I'm just trying to, I just want everyone to be happy. That sounds so corny and shitty, but it's true. I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. I want them to be happy. Even people who piss me off, I know most of the time, if my feelings have been hurt, it is because they've been hurt on something else and they're unhappy. Doesn't mean it didn't hurt me, but I'm saying it's because they were unhappy or they would have handled things better. So I kind of just, I'm fingers crossed that like my book can be a small part of what is this movement, this new modern movement. Because there was a movement in the 80s. This is kind of a modern movement now, but you know,
well, like the craft like re-sparked that. You know, that.
Well, Bruce and I actually giggled about that because this was a while back when we were talking, because we're like, listen, it's a silly teen movie, right? Okay. We're very clear on that, FYI. But what we were giggling about was like, we kind of did help bring this to the forefront of pop culture, right? There were always people really doing it. But what I'm saying is we put it, the movie, put it front and center, you know, and a whole generation of girls were lighting candles, and some of them grew up to be people who actually studied and became, you know, part of the world.
I mean, when I was a little child, because I was a foster care kid too.
Oh, you were? I didn't know that. How old were you when you were in foster care?
So I went in when I was about 4, like 3 to 4, and I got out. So I was shuffled around a bunch, different foster care facilities, different families, things like that. I got out at about 7-ish, 6, 7-ish.
Oh, gotcha. So 3 years, you know.
So, which is like forever. When
it's a lot. I know at that age, that's an eternity. Yeah. But that's why I wanted to write about it too, because I thought I was lucky enough to end up with one of my parents, right? So I did. My father and my mother both came back at the same time and at a big court, whatever. But you know, I ended up with my parent, but I was in foster care from 9 months to 4. Those are very formative years. And that is probably why tarot works a lot really well for me, because there are just stuff that happened that you're supposed to get during those formative years. And I was with very nice people, by the way, very nice people, but I didn't get it. So this is my way of retraining myself to be in the world in a way that is healthier.
Yeah. So when I got out of foster care, I went to live with my grandparents, who were like crazy religious, like not just like Christian, but like Christian crazy, like the most extreme you can think. And one day, I think I was like 7, maybe 8, I saw The Craft, and something about it.
I was 7 when I shot it, Matt.
Something about it was like almost like finding God or something, you know? It's like, what is
You were too
this?
young to have seen it, by the way. 7 is too young. Didn't the snake scare you? No.
No, I
know, it's not scary. I don't think it's scary, but there are some adult topics in it, you know. But wow, really, I didn't realize you'd seen it that young.
Yeah, and it started a thirst in me. And it started, like you were saying, like, you know, I was always trying to find different books, and I was trying to, like, gather the girls to, like, you know, call the quarters, you know, at school and stuff. And, like, now I am an occult teacher. I'm an occult writer, you know.
But that's what Bruce and I were giggling about, because we were not trying to take credit for that, but we're saying perhaps us being silly and on a Sony soundstage shooting a movie about which we were passionate about. Fruz and I were the two people. Like, we had a witch consultant called Pat Devin, and Fruz and I are the two who trekked so far into the valley to go to a Beltane festival. I don't know, it's like in another state practically. But we both went, you know, because it was important to us to do our homework for the movie. And, you know, it's funny, people always say to me, like, you and Fruz are the magic ones. And I'm like, they're not wrong about, I'm not talking about I'm not shading the other actors, but I'm saying people in the know can tell her and I were in the know.
I mean, like, you can kind of see it in the movie.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you're in the know, if you're not, there's just 4 actresses, and I'm not shading the other 2. They don't need to be into the occult studies, right? You don't need to, but I love that people can tell that Fairuza gave it her heart and soul, right? And this is all stuff I was very interested in and was a part of me, and I knew was destiny to end. As I always say, no one's going to be a little black witch in this town but me when I got that script.
That's great.
Any other questions or anything?
No,
but
so
that means a lot.
Great.
Like, Matt, just so you know, it means a lot that like the craft meant a lot, and that you started studying real stuff. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people, again, in today's modern world, everybody's a witch. And this is my slogan these days. Like, if you're the daughter of the witches they didn't burn, Karen, then why are you such a bitch?
Right.
That's terrible, but you understand why I'm saying that, because a lot of people are wearing the cloak of it without doing the work.
Yes, but I always try to remember myself as a child, and so I'm always like, yes, many people are going to enter it as a trend. Many people are going to dabble in it, but a few are going to go further with it. They're going to.
Absolutely, but that's what I'm talking about, is that it will take a few, will go further with it. No, there's nothing wrong with putting on the accoutrements of it, you know what I mean? Right. And the paraphernalia of it all. You're just testing stuff out, But I think I brought it up to say I have a lot of little empaths, who want to talk to me. And they'll say in the DMs, also, a lot of them don't have boundaries because they'll tell me everything. And it's in the gray DM, so they don't even know if I'm reading them, but I do look through sometimes. But they'll poise it as, and I think this is a generational thing, they'll poise it as, I'm an empath, I feel everything, it's not fair, and I don't know how to get people to stop. And I say, okay, let's just rephrase that. You're an empath, which is a beautiful gift. It is now your responsibility to learn how to protect your energy, how to deflect other people's energy, your boundaries with your magical energy, with your person, with your sex, with your everything. Boundaries are healthy. And that is what's on the table, because the problem with twin flames that I don't like too is like it poises people as victims, right? So when someone says it's not fair that everyone comes at me, we've all of a sudden put ourselves in a victim space when we are empowered and feeling you can read their mind. It's an empowering thing. And a lot of girls, are like, I'm an empath. And that's like in itself enough. They want accolades for that. And what I'm trying to say with my book is like, listen, almost everyone's an empath, to be 100% honest. Some people will never get in touch with that energy because it's been blocked, but that ability is there in all of us. So you are special because you're in touch with it. But I'm the same way about like acting. I was always well aware. They treat us so special when we're on sets and stuff, but I was well aware that I am special. I'm a very special being. Look at me. Hey. But I'm also the person who happened to get that role. And if it wasn't me, the next person would be treated just as special. So I like to stay grounded instead of believing the hype in things. And so I'm just giving a little caution to baby witches to do some work with it too. And you may find you love it and become an occult teacher like you. But by digging in there just a little bit more.
Beautiful.
Now I sound like everyone's aunt, but whatever.
So I don't want to take up too much of your time. Is there anything else you want to cover that you feel we haven't covered?
No, I don't think so. I guess I'll just say you can edit this in or not, okay? But I would just say, like, part of, we talked about this a little in terms of the essays illuminating the cards, but just also, I don't think I'm necessarily at a point where the world needed a full-on memoir book from me, right? That's something I would write later on in my life. But at the same time, I do feel like as a Gen X mixed Black Jewish actress who went through the things that I went through, people keep saying like, where are you? Why don't I see you in more movies? Some of it's racism, to be honest. Yeah. Some of it is, a lot's changed though since then, and a lot of it is ageism, and things like that. But also I talk about this in the book. I had a major health thing and I had to get healthy and get better in my body from that. And that caused me to take some time off, from work, you know, and I'm still an artist, I'm still an actor, I'm still a writer, I'm still all these things, because people seem to be saying like I ceased to exist because they didn't see me. And I was like, I still, just like you still exist. When I'm, you know, I still exist and I'm still doing my own thing. And I actually am happy that the memoirs are in there, because I think maybe it'll help some other slightly insecure, neurotic, empathy chick out there, you know, who's going through some of the same similar things I did. They don't even have to be because of race or this and that, but just universal things that we go through when we are younger, and, you know, tremendous losses like I talk about in the Tower card or things like that. So, you know, I am glad I got the essays in there. It makes me feel good that they're in there, and I think that's nice to feel good about your work and your book.